to the back and forth over tariffs. Canada had the new leader to succeed Justin Trudeau, who's stepping down after nearly a decade as prime minister.
Canada is entering a new political chapter. After nearly 10 years under Justin Trudeau, the country now sees Mark Carney stepping in as prime minister and leader of the Liberal Party, a shift that could reshape Canadian politics for years to come. Carney, a former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, is known for his calm, calculated approach to economic policy.
This is no time for politics as usual.
Mark Carney pitched himself as an outsider, not a politician, but someone who would have the skills needed to meet the moment.
No, it's not the time for lifelong politicians such as Pierre Poilievre.
He was born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, raised in Edmonton. His father, Bob, ran for the Liberals, coming in second to the Progressive Conservatives. Carney studied economics abroad, earning a bachelor's degree from Harvard University before getting his master's and PhD from Oxford. For 13 years, he worked for global investment banking firm Goldman Sachs, before holding several senior positions at the Bank of Canada and in the finance department in Ottawa.
CPP, QPP is not federal money, it is shared money for all Canadians.
In 2008, then Prime Minister Stephen Harper appointed Carney to run the Bank of Canada, the second youngest bank governor ever.
Some of the world's largest financial institutions have recorded substantial losses.
Amid the global financial crisis, Carney called for widespread reforms to the world's financial system.
Double hats now as the head of the International Financial Stability Board, so delighted you're able to join us, Mark.
Working alongside Harper Conservatives, Carney was credited for how well Canada weathered the financial storm compared to other nations. Even named as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in 2010, the only central banker on the list, alongside people like U.S. President Barack Obama.
Canada has shone, relatively speaking, in the world during the period of time in which Governor Carney has served as the governor of the Bank of Canada.
In 2013, Carney became the governor of the Bank of England, becoming the first ever foreigner to be named to that role. He later agreed to stay on at the helm for 2 extra years to help ease the Brexit transition. More recently, Carney worked for investment firm Brookfield Asset Management, served as the United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Action.
2/3 of carbon being priced by the end of the decade.
For years, he supported a carbon tax, only to walk away from the policy at the start of the leadership race.
Why don't I become a circus clown? I mean, what? It's like...
For more than a decade, Carney toyed with the idea of running for the top job of the Liberal Party.
I have gainful employment, and I intend to continue it.
In 2020, Prime Minister Trudeau tapped Carney to serve as an informal advisor on the government's pandemic recovery plan. He immediately became a front-runner in the leadership race when Trudeau resigned earlier this year. He has never held public office, but Liberals bought his pitch. Now he will have to convince Canadians.
Unlike Trudeau's progressive, people-centered leadership, Carney is seen as a technocrat, a leader focused on fiscal discipline, climate finance, and institutional reform. This leadership change comes as Canadians grow increasingly concerned about economic pressures, housing shortages, and healthcare strains. Trudeau's tenure brought historic immigration reform, environmental policy, and social progress, but also criticism for rising debt, unmet promises on electoral reform, and strained relations with Indigenous communities.
Good morning, Michael. There's no question that Donald Trump's shadow was hanging over Canada's election, and no question that Canada's new leader is ready to take him on.
Overnight, Liberal Party leader Mark Carney, a successful banker and investor, chosen as Canada's new prime minister, succeeding Justin Trudeau and quickly and defiantly taking aim at the U.S.
I know that these are dark days. Dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust.
In words unimaginable just a few months ago, Carney, in his acceptance speech, saying the main threat to Canada right now is the United States, calling it the greatest threat of our lifetime.
America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form.
addressing President Trump directly, slamming the president's threats of annexation, and accusing Trump of attacking Canadian workers, businesses, and families through tariffs.
We didn't ask for this fight. We didn't ask for this fight. But Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
The newly elected prime minister said Canadians cannot let Trump succeed in what he called a crisis to the south. So, George, brace yourself for what could be a very different relationship with our northern neighbor in the months to come. George.
Yeah, some real startling rhetoric there.
As Trudeau stepped down voluntarily earlier this year, citing a need for fresh leadership, Mark Carney emerged as the Liberal Party's top choice. Despite never having held elected office, Carney's global experience and economic credibility made him an appealing figure, especially for moderate voters looking for stability. Still, his transition wasn't seamless. The Liberal base was divided. Some feared a drift from Trudeau's progressive agenda. But Carney has worked to reassure supporters, promising continuity on social values while applying a more disciplined economic approach.
In a more dangerous and divided world, geopolitical risks are rising, threatening our sovereignty. The global trading system, which has helped power Canada's prosperity for decades, is undergoing its biggest transformation since the fall of the Berlin Wall. At home, our long-standing weak productivity is making life less affordable for Canadian families. It's straining government finances and threatening to undermine the sustainability of vital social programs on which Canadians rely. So Canada's new government has an immense responsibility to address these challenges head-on, with focus, new strategies, and determined execution. And that new approach animates the mandate letter that I shared with all members of our ministry at the end of our meeting. It reflects a unified mission. This one letter outlines the core priorities of Canada's new government, reflecting the mandate that Canadians have given to us. In particular, the government is charged to build the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone. We're to bring down the cost of living for Canadian families, to keep our country secure and our communities safe, to develop a new economic and security relationship with the United States, and to build new partnerships with reliable allies around the world. Our team is already acting on this mandate with urgency and determination. This past weekend, I met with U.S. Vice President Vance in Rome, where I reiterated what workers and businesses on both sides of the border have long known, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. Minister LeBlanc is currently in Washington to continue negotiations with members of President Trump's cabinet. And Minister Champagne is meeting with his American counterpart as the minister leads the G7 finance ministers meeting in Banff.
One of his first policy proposals includes a revamped economic plan, balancing spending with investment in housing, healthcare, and green technology. He's also advocating tax reform to reduce loopholes for the wealthy and increase support for innovation and infrastructure upgrades. On the world stage, Carney's experience is expected to strengthen Canada's diplomatic posture. His familiarity with international finance puts him in a strong position to navigate trade tensions and elevate Canada's role in forums like the G7 and UN. Domestically, however, Carney faces real challenges. Divisions over carbon pricing, Indigenous reconciliation, and immigration remain deep. Canada's political landscape is increasingly fragmented, with strong competition from both Conservatives and New Democrats. Critics argue Carney's background in global finance makes him disconnected from everyday Canadians. In response, he's been increasing his visibility in smaller communities and stressing his focus on inclusive economic growth. This moment represents more than just a change in leadership. It's a test of whether the Liberal Party can evolve without losing its core identity. Mark Carney's success will depend on his ability to lead with both competence and connection. The path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Canada's political direction is shifting, and the country and the world are watching closely.